And this is the last thing that I can remember before I found out that I had a brain tumor. Wait, hold on. Sorry, let me start over. On September 1st, 2020, I took my last test I needed to become a shift lead at work. I was at Taco Bell at the time, and I'd been there for about 3 years. And so everyone was super excited. There was cake, there was managers from other stores that came in on Thursday to present me as a manager. Everyone was excited for me. It was a good day. Saturday, I had a wedding reception that I was going to with my ex-boyfriend. We were driving around the parking lot because it was a busy Saturday morning, trying to find a parking spot, and I started getting a headache. And so I was like, hey, let me out on the grass here, you go park, come back and find me. He went and parked, came back to find me, and I was laying on the ground unconscious. My mom met us at the hospital. They told me that I had a brain tumor. So it kind of all started back when I was 10, back in 2010. Me and my family, we were up in the mountains taking pictures. My dad had just gotten a new motorcycle, so we were all just taking kind of family pictures, but kind of pictures of the motorcycle. And we had this picture. I'm the oldest, so I was up the front of the motorcycle, so I was holding on the handlebars, and my siblings were lined up behind me, and we took this picture. Later that night, we were looking at the picture, and my mom was like, Megan, come here, come smile for me. And I smiled, and you can still see it, it's lopsided. We had a neighbor who had been diagnosed with Bell's palsy, so we were like, oh, let's go see. But my mom already thought there was Bell's palsy. So when the doctor said Bell's palsy, we weren't surprised, we just went along with it. The doctor said that it normally doesn't cause deafness, because as well as my face not working right, I went deaf in this ear. And they were like, I don't know, it doesn't usually cause deafness, but it did this time. So over the next 10 years, I got used to being half deaf. I adapted my smile, so I smiled a little less on the left side, so it's a little less obvious that my right side wasn't working properly. The type of tumor I had, it's called a vestibular schwannoma. It's a tumor that it grows on my hearing nerve. It's not cancerous, it's benign, it's slow growing. So the guess is it started growing when I was a toddler, or maybe when I was born. And by the time I was 10, it was big enough to make me go deaf and make the facial paralysis noticeable. And when I was 20, it got big enough that it was putting pressure on so many other things. My tumor, it was the biggest they'd ever seen. It was about 9 by 6 by 3 centimeters, which is about the size of a softball, the 9 centimeters. So obviously it wasn't round, 9 by 6 by 3, but that's 9 centimeters. So September 5th is when we found it. September 8th was my first surgery. I have a scar that goes all the way around, it's like a C, all the way around my head. After 8 hours of that first surgery on September 8th, I had lost 4 bags of blood. So they sealed me up, scheduled another surgery for later. And that week, I did a lot of recovery. I kind of was getting on my feet, learning to walk again. And then I had the second surgery and I had to restart. So the second surgery was a lot scarier than the first because I knew what the symptoms were of the after effects of the surgery. And so I had to restart all that. I had to learn how to walk again. I remember taking laps around the hospital with a nurse and my ex, and going so slow and getting mad at how slow I was walking. I couldn't walk any faster. I wasn't allowed to drink water, let alone eat food. I had a feeding tube in my nose that went all the way in, and it went past my stomach. About a week before I got out, my nurse, he took my weight, and I was 95 pounds, which before surgery, I'd been 120. So I was like, I don't think you're giving me enough food if I've lost 30 pounds in 3 weeks. But you're the doctors here. So my tumor, we did find it in 2020. So September, the hospital still had policies in place. The only one that really affected me was the visitors. So I was only allowed one visitor. I picked one person that could come visit me. And my ex and I, we'd been dating for nearly 2 years at that point, so I had him come visit. Halfway through my hospital stay, the policy did change to one person a day, so my parents on separate days came several times. Yeah, COVID sucked. There was one day where, just a month after surgery, where there was an ad on the radio being like, we've had the murder hornets and this and that and COVID and 2020 has sucked. my dad was like, don't forget about the brain tumors. After the second surgery, I was still in the hospital for about 2 weeks. Once I got home from the hospital, I was pretty much on bed rest. I was able to eat like applesauce and mashed potatoes pretty quickly. It was probably mid-November. My parents were really worried about me going back, but I credit a lot of my speedy recovery to the fact that I went back to work, because my boss, she was great. She's a family friend, so she didn't push me. I started out with 1-2 hour shifts where I would just stand there. It was food, so I would just stand there. I wouldn't do any lifting. I would just make tacos. And then 3 months later, I was back to doing 40-hour weeks, 8-hour shifts. I was recovered a lot. A few weeks later, I was driving home from my ex's place, which was about a 20-minute drive. And I pulled over because I felt kind of lightheaded. I pulled over for a minute and I was like, no, I just gotta make it home. So I drove like another minute, maybe. And then I felt lightheaded again and I was like, no, I didn't pull over. I pulled over, and the next thing I know, my ex is calling me, being like, are you home? He had texted me, I hadn't answered, he called me, he's like, are you okay? And I was like, I am on the side of Mountain View corridor right now. And he's like, why? And I'm like, I don't remember. I spaced. So he got his dad and they came and helped me get the rest of the way home. So we went to the ER the next day and I was diagnosed with epilepsy. They think I had a little drain in my head from surgery. They think that that caused a little dent in my brain. So I have epilepsy now. I also was diagnosed with tachycardia. When I was in the hospital, my resting heart rate was 120. Tachycardia is diagnosed to people who have a resting heart rate of over 100. They didn't diagnose me immediately just because I just had brain surgery, but after a few months when my heart rate was still getting that high, I got on meds and I'm still on that medication for it. So here I am, 3 years out. I just had a follow-up MRI and doctor's appointment with my surgeon, and he said that there's no tumor growth, everything looks good. So, from personal experience, I strongly advise that you do not grow a brain tumor.